dominate the Middle East. Jerusalem, a little over 1,000 around. July 1099. After a 5-week siege, the Crusaders take the city.
When
They call themselves the Order of the Poor Knights of the Temple of Solomon. In time, they're simply known as the Holy Grail.
Different forms. Maybe they're searching for a special stone that fell from heaven.
Another story connects the Grail to the very death of Jesus, the Roman spear that pierced Jesus' side. The very foundation of Christianity of Troyes in France. Templars mysterious. The Templars used their power to tap into the wealth of Europe. Evidence of their financial clout and influence still stands today.
the Templars were openly involved in financing and constructing most of the major Gothic cathedrals of the 12th and 13th centuries. They almost certainly financed the entire building of Chartres Cathedral. Financially, it would have been the equivalent of the American moonshot back in the late 60s.
One of the finest Templar churches stands in the heart of London. Called the London Temple, it displays the Templar symbol, two men riding a single horse. Unlike most medieval churches, this one is round.
Such a church was designed to recreate the sanctity of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, the destination of every pilgrim, the most sacred place on earth, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is round.
This wasn't just a church, it was a treasury.
The King of England came here to the London Temple and removed £50,000 sterling in 1307. It was like walking into Fort Knox and taking off with the gold. Huge resources were being managed and administered, apparently honestly and effectively, by the Templars.
Throughout Europe, the cash-rich Templars began to lend money to cash-strapped nobles. The Templars had an edge over other Christian lenders. They could charge interest.
In Europe in the Middle Ages, very few people were allowed to transact with money because it was supposedly a sin, simony and usury, to lend money at an interest.
The Templars may have created the idea of the check and the line of credit. Pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land would deposit money in a local Templar treasury. In return, a receipt showing the amount deposited.
You would finally make it to your destination. You would then cash in what amounts to a medieval traveler's check concept. This was like an early letter of credit.
Convenient, but costly. The Templars charged up to 10% for this service. The Templars vowed themselves to a life of poverty, but that didn't seem to affect their bottom line. How did the Templars reconcile their worldly riches with their beliefs?
The individual knights took vows of poverty, so they themselves did not own property. They themselves were not wealthy, but the order was allowed to hold that money in order to conduct its own businesses.
By the late 1200s, the Knights Templar are one of the richest and most powerful organizations in Europe. But envy and anger follow them, and a ruthless plot is set in motion. The Knights Templar is one of the most powerful organizations in Europe. But there's trouble ahead. The Crusades made the Knights Templar, and the Crusades are about to destroy the Knights Templar. Muslim armies converge on the Holy Land. After 2 centuries of warfare, Muslims are newly united under the Egyptian sultans. Support for the Crusades dwindles back in Europe.
After the fall of Acre in 1291, you have a series
Out his loans with one stroke. Arrest the Templars and seize their money.
I order you this evening. Bring them to the dungeons on the Louvre.
The king concocted a group.
By the order of the king, you are under arrest.
By what charge?
Heresy.
The arrests
I confess my sin of heresy.
indicating on the host, waving their bottoms at the Eucharist.
executed as an unrepentant heretic. With his dying breath, it is said de Molay put a curse on the Pope.